Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Anarchy, your favorite artistic little hell spawn. If you like what you see here, I hope you stick around. We're finally here, the long-awaited Amity video, except it's a reboot. Listen, I know. Anarchy, why are you rebooting a story that you only introduced like 6 months ago? But hear me out, please have a seat. Originally, Amity was going to be one in a collection of stories in my OC universe known as Spectrum. But as I started taking the story more seriously and realizing this is something I actually want to do and that I actually want to be able to produce something someday, I realized that what I was planning was way too ambitious. Let's be honest, I'd be lucky if I'd be able to produce one of these stories, let alone the like 4 or 5 I was planning. But I didn't want the rest of my work to sit on the shelf and rot either. Everything I make means so much to me, I can't bear to let any of it go. So I made a compromise. I decided to pick one story that's going to be the main story, this being Amity, and I was going to compress the rest and put that into Amity's story. Now, this meant a lot of things in all the stories needed to be changed and rewritten for this to work, so nothing in the original video I made is really accurate anymore, hence the reboot. But unfortunately, this didn't stop things from needing to be scrapped, so because I cannot kill my darlings for the life of me, I also made Amity a sister story made up of all the ideas I had to scrap from the base project, known as Iridescence. Yeah, you guys remember that Rainbow High inspired story I was gonna make like a year ago and then just never got to? Well, here you go. It all comes full circle. Another announcement is that this video was made in collaboration with Parblo, who sent me their Intangbo X7 to use and review for this video. I do like to say this video is not sponsored. They did send me the tablet for free, but I am not being paid for this. All opinions are my own. Here in this cute little box comes the tablet itself, which is 7.2 by 4.5 inches of working area using a USB-C cord, this adorable teal battery-free stylus, a USB-A to USB-C cable plus an adapter, a pen case with 8 replacement nibs and a built-in remover on the top of the pen, and an artist glove, a cleaning cloth, user manual, warranty card, and a lot of cute fun stickers. The tablet has 5 customizable express keys plus a mechanical dial, 60 degrees of tilt support, and is compatible with most devices, plus Android. Now, I will not be trying the Android part of the tablet today, considering my mother considers this an Apple-only household, so I cannot try it. But I've seen this from other artists and I've heard that this support is very good. The pen has 2 buttons and 8,192 levels of pressure sensitivity. It comes in 3 colors, black, pink, and green. It's sleek and very portable, and it's at a good price point of $60. I'm going to get into my full thoughts on the tablet at the end of the video, so stick around for that. But for now, on to everything we need to get into. So I was initially gonna make this segment look more like a traditional speed paint, like, you know, with me recording with OBS and stuff, so you guys can see how I work with the tablet, but the footage got corrupted, so we're gonna have to set up for the time lapse. Anyways, starting off with what Spectrum is. Spectrum is a modern fantasy universe made up of distinct realms, each shaped by their own magic systems, cultural ideologies, emotional logic, etc. These realms once coexisted and tied together in harmony through a visionary unification effort known as Amity, described to bring magical balance and emotional resonance across the world. Amity was a world-spanning magical coalition dedicated to fostering peace, emotional balance, and interconnected magic across all the realms of Spectrum, and it was run by the very first visionary known as Seraphine. It served as the closest thing Spectrum had to a global unification force structured around diplomacy, magical harmony, and vision-driven leadership. However, 15 years ago, Amity mysteriously collapsed, and Seraphine seemingly disappeared. Since then, Amity has since become a conspiracy. Theories include internal sabotage, ideological betrayal, and the awakening of deeper cosmic forces. The collapse, however, triggered the emergence of the Rift, an ongoing metaphysical crisis that left behind power vacuums in many factions of Spectrum that its government, its holders, etc. has since scrambled to fill. While the organization no longer exists, its ideals, ruins, and legacy systems still influence many characters, institutions, governments, and plotlines, especially in our main setting of Radiance. Each realm is shaped and ruled by a being known as a primordial, a sentient, magical entity embodying emotional and metaphysical essence of that region. Magic is governed through realm-specific systems tied to these primordials, like visionaries in Radiance or wraiths and witches in Echospire. Magic is emotionally fueled, culturally defined, symbolically visual, and systematically flawed. The Rift is the fallout of Amity's destruction, but what people don't know is that it's also tied to another cosmic force known as starfall events. I won't be getting into starfall events right now, but I'll get into it all on their own in another video. The Rift manifests in the corruption of magical systems, dangerous anomalies, and spatial and emotional distortions. It is not fully understood. Some primordials try to fix it, others explore it, and some deny it. Most regular people have no idea what's truly happening though. As for inhabitants, Spectrum can come with any species. A furry, a human, an android, an alien, a paranormal being like a ghost. Everyone exists here. I didn't want to have any limits. Some live ordinary lives separate from the magical world. Some are deeply entangled in magic society, rebellion, or cults. It really just, again, depends on where you go. And while magic systems are so varied in Spectrum, their philosophy is relatively the same. Magic is reactive, personal, and symbolic. It mirrors the person's inner world and their emotional selves. It varies drastically depending on belief, region, etc. It's highly visual, tied to transformations, weaponry, and bonded beings. And in many places, it's twisting, breaking down, and being used as a tool for control. As you can imagine, with Amity gone, there's no central magic authority or anyone tying these worlds together, so they've all kind of isolated in on themselves. The Rift continues to destabilize reality. Bleed through between realms has become more and more common, and creating very chaotic spaces. And everyone wonders whether or not Amity will or can ever come back. Spectrum as a world was made to be modular, where I, or frankly you, can add new realms, magic types, and cultures when needed. And every arc adds new emotional and magical perspectives. Iridescence is going to have something like this too, and I made it so that way my stories are kind of a collaborative effort. Something where people can just hop in and join and make whatever they want, and it'll still be canon, and it'll be fun, and we can all interact with each other. It would be so cool. I think that's so cool. I love stories like that. It was a big thing I loved about the RWBY fandom, so I guess this is my way of trying to replicate it. Radiance currently serves as the central stage due to its symbolic ties to Amity, its ideological importance, and it's just the fact that this is where our main characters live. So with that said, let's talk about Radiance. Radiance is the central realm of the Spectrum universe. It's known for its integration of magic into daily life and its cultural obsession with emotional perfection, aesthetic, beauty, and personal evolution. The realm was once the heart of Spectrum and was a major hub in Amity's unification project, but after Amity collapsed, Radiance isolated itself behind glamorized illusion systems and selective magical governance. Magic is very visible and very aestheticized, used in public architecture, art, tools, but its true function is heavily restricted and filtered, hidden behind systems of control. Underneath its sleek, dreamlike appearance is a tightly regulated magic society driven by performance, curated identity, and suppressed emotional truths. Radiance is organized through an informal but powerful system of magical territories rather than countries and cities. These territories are not political regions but emotionally magically attuned zones that align specifically to magical themes, institutions, and dominant figures. Each territory has different kinds of visionaries and stabilizes a particular kind of magic, such as performance, order, memory, or rebellion. These territories can affect things like the behavior and evolution of the bonded archive, the stability of transformation sequences, the appearance and function of magic, and the presence and suppression of the phenomena like Mazewell. Territory holders can vary from respective mentors to corrupted elites to institutional factions or even just simple groups. Think of it like how territories work in Madoka Magica. Some territories uphold balance, others exploit their territory's influence and resources, and some are just trying to make sure it's as normal as possible. Crossing territories without understanding or permission, though, is risky. It can trigger magical interference, archive confusion, draw attention from unseen enforcers, or just cause full-on territory wars. Now onto Radiance's magic system, the Visionaries and the Archives. Visionaries are individuals who have undergone a quote-unquote soul awakening, bonding with a sentient magical being known as an archive through contracts anchored by their ethereal and their soul window. A soul window is a crystal-like core embedded in a visionary's body, reflecting their inner self, emotional identity and stability, and their personal truths. It acts as a magical interface for all their powers and their transformation. An ethereal is a visionary's magical item. It serves as a focal point for their magic, channeling energy into maintaining their soul window, summoning their archai, triggering transformation sequences, and powering signature weapons and emotional techniques. Ethereals are very symbiotic and responsive, and they adapt to their user's state of mind, growth, and instability. And they all have unique traits and two main forms, a weapon form and an item form that the holder uses in their unique skill. For example, someone could have like an axe that's a paintbrush. You get what I mean? Each visionary's magic and transformation is deeply symbolic, representing their emotions, their traumas, their beliefs, and their innermost personalities. No two transformations will look alike unless those holders are on the same team, or just share a really close bond. And they can get additional forms as they grow in their magical development. And this is often used to rank and regulate visionaries within the system. Some transformations are natural, others are institutionally imposed. Now, archai are sentient magical beings born from raw consensual forces, such as identity, freedom, regret, joy, or control. However, there are also physical type of archai which represent physical concepts like the sun, the moon, fire, water, things like that. They are not pets or servants, they are autonomous, unpredictable, and deeply symbolic. An archai's bond is permanent. Once they've chosen their holder, the visionary cannot change or reject them. And archais, I imagine, involve similar to Pokemon. They have different forms depending on the holder's magical development. Archai are meant to be both a source of power and a mirror of truth, meaning they often challenge their visionary emotionally, pushing growth, but may also manipulate, retreat, or turn hostile if misaligned. And archai are actually very amoral beings, so not every archai is this super good, super sweet person that only wants to see the good. Some of them are evil. So you could have dynamics with a good person with a bad archai, or a bad person with a good archai, or they're both in the middle and they both just think they have to do what they have to do. In visionary culture, visionaries are ranked and categorized by aesthetics, transformation stages, and behavior, mirroring idol, military, or academic hierarchies depending on the territory. While presented to the public as heroes, artists, elite protectors, or just very talented people in different factors, visionaries are often used as tools by institutions to enforce emotional norms and suppress spontaneous magic awakenings. However, there are both regulated and non-regulated ways that someone can become a visionary. However, it is the norm to be trained in academy-inspired programs. A lot of their lives are curated by handlers, media, and magical oversight boards. Public success often hides emotional burnout, identity suppression, and magical instability, along with mental health instability. Bonding with an archai is framed as a dream responsibility, but in reality, it's an irreversible contract into a system that often strips people of their personal choices. Now, finally, onto this world's personal threats that will feed into the main conflict for the first part of the story. We have, starting, the Maze Well. The Maze Well is Radiance's personal expression of the Greater Spectrum Rift, a dimensional labyrinth formed from suppressed emotion, fractured identities, and failed magical growth. It exists beneath the world, but is constantly leaking into it and constantly destabilizing anything around it. And the Maze Well generates sub-thread realms, unstable pseudo-dimensions built on broken stories, emotional loops, and symbolic failures. And it can infect both settings and people, but it's mostly things like abandoned schools, failed performances, emotionally charged areas, and suppressed and forbidden memories. And if you stay in Maze Well too long, you will become corrupted, and you might not be able to go back. And with the Maze Well comes the Hollows. Hollows are corrupted emotional beings that are created when emotional trauma, magical instability, or failed resonance gets unresolved. They can affect civilians and visionaries alike, but they can also infect archai themselves. And a lot of the time, they invade the real world. And the situation is slowly eating Radiance from the inside out, but everyone ignores it, leaving it to fester and get worse and worse as the government continues to try to cover it up. Which leads to our next major threat, which is systematic exploitation and magical collapse. The visionary system itself is a major threat in its demand for control, suppression, and perfection, which breeds instability by design. This includes altering someone's transformation, which might misalign with their true selves, coercing archai bonds, false quote-unquote ascension programs that break soul windows for power, and emotional branding and persona enforcement. Former visionaries who have often resisted this system were either rewritten or erased, turned into cautionary tales, or hunted by magical enforcers. These internal failures cause resonant scars across territories, making them unstable and more prone to maze-well breaches or hollow activity. Though, I do have to say this is a very bare-bones explanation of visionary corruption, as corruption could look different depending on the territory and who's running it and things of that nature. Now, finally going into our main plot of the story, Amity follows Noemi Polandia, SKYLAR Everett, and Rios Herrera, a tightly knit visionary trio stationed in their first mission in Lustrous, the capital city of Radiance. The trio have been together for years. They are each other's favorite people, and they work under the leading magical visionary organization known as Celeste Talent Agency, a public-facing institution that merges magical works with entertainment, media, and emotional curation, along with things like medical and, things like that. And this means our trio are very overworked and have a lot to do because their lives are actually split into 3 parts: the more idle side of visionary work, their personal lives, and the magical missions they need to go on. Hollow outbreaks, Archai awakenings, and structural disruptions in magic caused by emotional decay, or just fighting bad guys. While all 3 of them are our protagonists, Noemi is our main protagonist. She's a rebellious, emotionally volatile, and dangerously curious 19-year-old girl. Though groomed to be a model visionary since childhood, she resists structure and often digs into things she's told to leave alone. Her magic is the most unstable and reactive, tied to memories she doesn't fully understand and a hollow event that she didn't report. Raised by reverie after a drain event erased her past. Think of this as like a mix of Mother Gothel and Rapunzel's relationship with Jinx and Silco's relationship. It's kind of like the middle between the two. Noemi finds herself drawn to suppressed history and begins to uncover fragments relating to the forgotten Amity and Seraphine and the systematic collapse. SKYLAR is a graffiti/tattoo artist trying to stay out of reach of the group they once worked for, one that exploits magical instability for influence. Though they've cut ties, the consequence of their past involvement follows them into the team's current missions. And no, they are not aware of this. Finally, Rios, who joined the system both for financial reasons and to prove something to his neglectful family, and serves as the trio's emotional anchor. He's the one with the least formal background to magic, but is still committed to his job and caught between personal uncertainty and the group's unraveling reality. As the group carries out stylized public missions, they begin to uncover emotional anomalies, conceptual corruption, and secrets hidden behind curated narratives. Every performance becomes an accidental clue, each assignment brings them closer to the truth behind the collapse of the visionary system, Amity, and, of course, Seraphine. Their bond, both magical and emotional, is central to the story, and their teamwork is tested by betrayal, memory, pressure, and the cost of staying whole in a system designed for fractured identity. And with that said, let's get into our trio of protagonists. Starting with our protagonist, you know her, you love her, Noemi Polandia. I wouldn't say she's too different from when I initially introduced her, but there was a lot changed. Noemi is 19 years old and of course is a visionary idol stationed in Lustrous under Celeste Talent Agency. She originally lived in the undercity of Lustrous called Blanc. However, when she was around 9 or 10, she was adopted and raised by Reverie after a catastrophic drain event erased most of her early memories. At least, that's what Reverie tells her. She currently lives in an observatory shared with SKYLAR and Rios, built upon their childhood dreams of saving the world. Noemi is very emotional, volatile, and intensely curious, and strategically sharp beneath a sarcastic and playful exterior. She comes off as if she doesn't really take things too seriously, but that is a cover to show her big noggin. So, she's also deeply rebellious and impulsive, often chasing things she's told to avoid. She has a sharp sense of humor, masks her pain with wit, and thrives in chaos. However, deep down she's very introspective, lonely, and prone to emotional up-downs or intense outbursts depending on the pressure. And she does feel very disconnected from her role and her image, and she doesn't trust what the system made her into. She enjoys stories, fairy tales, symbolism, and collecting broken magical objects and strange trinket. She often zones out mid-conversation and returns with unexpected insight. She sings to herself when nervous, and she's an artistic generalist. She likes to dabble in a little bit of everything. Her abilities are really the only thing that has not changed. Her personal talent is called Mirage Altir. However, the thing is that for a lot of the time, she cannot control what she creates. Her power is very chaotic. However, everything she makes needs to be tied down by some sort of anchor. So a piece of it often comes from her personal collection, so she kind of has a hammer space thing going on. So essentially her ability is that she can create and change things. They just aren't really in her control. But as she starts to get a handle on her powers, she can essentially make and manipulate whatever she wants, Adam Eve style. Her ethereal is a wand pen hybrid known as Luminar, which she uses for crafting, fighting, and conducting her magic. It works similarly to the Red Crown in Cult of the Lamb, when she can kind of make it whatever she wants, except in the beginning she can't control it. She can control it in its artistic form when it's just meant to be different art tools, but as a weapon form it's pretty unpredictable, but it will often take the role of a hammer because girls with giant hammers is peak character design. Her Archii is a little being named Siri. Siri is anxious, scatterbrained, and overly eager to help. Part advisor, part stress amplifier. She talks constantly and usually delivering encyclopedic knowledge at the worst possible moment and often speaks in riddles. She's uncanny and twitchy with a strange sense of timing and detached emotional logic. And she acts as a narrative guide figure, always trying to keep Noemi on track, but does so in a way that raises more questions than answers. She also has habits like glitching mid-sentence, giving metaphorical warnings, and freezing entirely when it comes to making any major decisions. You can kind of tell that there's more going on behind those eyes. Like, you could tell that she's hiding something and that there's something going on, but you just don't know, so she kind of just freaks you out. Noemi tends to blame herself for Siri's current behavior because she did get a little bit worse after a hollow event. While she keeps this a secret, she encountered a hollow that may be linked to Seraphine and the original Amity collapse. The hollow seemed to know her or know someone she once was, and left behind a magical imprint that destabilized her magic. And she hasn't told anyone in fear of possible reassignment or what could happen to her in her trio if she said something. But Siri was pretty much like this before. She even had a habit of calling Noemi the wrong name. She would often call her, and still does often call her by mistake, Seraphine. Ooh, lore, mystery. Come up with your theories in the comments. And with that, that's Noemi Polendina. My baby, my baby. I love her so. I think my character design with her improved a lot. I like this outfit way more for her. Now let's move on to Rios. Rios Herrera is the second and youngest member at 18 years old, and he's the healer of the trio. He's known as the responsible one, but he rarely feels like it though. Rios grew up in a big family on the outskirts of Radiance in the small town of Briar, but was often overlooked and treated like an afterthought or an inconvenience by his family. While everyone had something that made them special, Rios didn't really have anything that he could contribute. So, to prove that he mattered, he threw himself into learning everything he could. Healing, sewing, gardening, anything useful, but was still overlooked anyway. Scouted by an Archii who saw his potential, he bonded with it and has been secretly using it before being found by Reverie. Reverie was the first person to ever notice and recognize his value and brought him into the Visionary program, and his parents had no complaints. As sad as it was, they saw it as one less mouth to feed. So at 13, he joined Noemi pretty early on and quickly became the steady heart of their team. Quiet, reliable, and always holding things together. He's gentle, loyal, and quietly sharp. He's the emotional anchor, the calm in the crisis, and nurturing by default. But he's also an overachiever with very low self-esteem, constantly doing, fixing, and helping just to be seen. He's protective, honest, and occasionally blunt when he's pushed. And his sense of self-worth is tied to how useful he can be, especially to Noemi and SKYLAR. And I'ma say it, he is down bad, down horrendous for Noemi and SKYLAR. If they told him to jump off a bridge, he would. You know that TikTok audio where it's like, "Bitch, what are we having for dinner?" And then like the girl looks really sad and it says, "A grilled cheese." And then the boyfriend has to tell her to never let him talk to her like that again. That's Rios. He internalizes stress and fear so others don't have to feel it, and he has a little bit of a toxic positivity streak. He fears being replaced, forgotten, or sidelined, especially by the people he loves the most. Rios' ability is called Verdant Artisan. He can essentially use magical threads to change things, not create from nothing like Noemi or destroy like SKYLAR. His power is all about transforming what already exists and using what's in his environment. He can change spells, reshape objects, and change how the environment works. This includes things like changing objects, alter emotions into effects, reroute attacks, change movement, and modify people and gear. He can also just give so many buffs. He can give a lot of buffs. He particularly finds it more useful to change things that are alive, like plants and animals. Though don't worry, if he changes them, he can always change them back. Things he changes flowers to can have different effects based on the flower. animals can be amplified. You get what I mean. Like, it's stuff like that. It still needs some reworking and some adjustment to make sure he's not stepping on Noemi's toes at all. I just personally really like the idea of them representing creation, change, and destruction, like having Rios being that middle ground. As you may guess, the weapon was also taken from May, but I made some adjustments to make it more unique. This idea actually came from my friend Robin, because I couldn't decide if I wanted to give him swords, a whip, or daggers, and she was like, why not do all of them? So Bloom is a pair of golden scissors that serve as both a combat weapon and a sewing tool. They can split between twin daggers, and the blades of them are actually made of pollen that can change hardness, I guess. So they can turn into whips and blades. His fighting style is elegant and practical, and every movement is planned and every thread is intentional. Again, this is one of those abilities that really need cleaning up, so let me know if you have any suggestions. And his Archii is known as Rare, a very bad pun on the word rar, but it matches his personality. You get it. Rare is very refined and very high maintenance and thoroughly convinced of his own greatness. He speaks only in formal courtly language, regardless of the context. He demands attention, praise, and pristine treatment at all times. He tries to be a helpful guide, but often focuses more on aesthetics and etiquette rather than urgency. But despite the dramatics, Rare truly wants Rios to succeed and tries to uplift him with oddly tender and wordy affirmations. And he's constantly adjusting things like Rios' posture, his diction, or his outfit mid-mission for dignity's sake. This is partially why Rios' combat style is the way it is. It's graceful, calculated, and usually visually striking based on ballet and thread choreography. It balances offense and defense through movement and control, and he fights like he's dancing, specifically like he's ribbon dancing. However, he avoids direct confrontation unless necessary, often serving as support and a buffer. And he does a lot of cute, silly things like having an emergency bag for every mission with snacks, emergency sewing kits, first aid, things like that. He's obsessed with neatness, especially in his battle reports. He has a hidden collection of embroidered packages that no one has seen, because a lot of them are based on his teammates. He gardens and cares for animals in his spare time, and yes, he names every produce and flower in his garden. And Rare once gave him a 15-minute lecture on the importance of a dramatic entrance on a mission. Noemi enjoyed it, Rios did not. And that's Rios Herrera. I've had people asking about him ever since I changed my profile picture on Tumblr, so I'm happy you guys finally get to meet him. And with that, we can move on to our final protagonist, SKYLAR. Finally, we have SKYLAR Everett. You guys have met them before. They are 21 years old and the strategist of the Visionary team. Oh yeah, by the way, if you guys have any other names for this trio, please give me some. I don't want to keep calling them the Amity trio. I want to give them something unique. And yes, I'm asking you guys to make ship names in the comments. Go ahead and make ship names in the comments, guys. Anyway, SKYLAR is both a graffiti artist and a tattoo artist along with their visionary work. And they're the latest member of the group. They also do anonymous underground journalism. They grew up in the lower districts of Lustrous in a low-income household, until their parents suddenly came upon wealth and moved up into the elite. SKYLAR never knew how they came upon this wealth. It was a big secret, no one ever told them, but they knew it was shady. SKYLAR rejected their new image and walked away. They spent years surviving alone, eventually becoming entangled in one of the story's main antagonists through secret operations and corrupt magical activity, being convinced that they were doing the right thing and exposing the corruption, when really what they were in was just as corrupt as what they were fighting against. So they tried to run, and Reverie found them during this period and gave them a second chance, though they never fully trusted her. And this was only around 3 years ago. And they joined Noemi and Rios as part of the team, building trust slowly and choosing loyalty over secrecy, though they never told them everything. They're pretty strategic, aloof, and emotionally guarded. They read people quickly and keeps their cards close. However, they are very loyal and very physically affectionate, especially to Noemi and Rios, but terrified of what would happen if they found out too much. They're exceptionally smart and observant, especially skilled at spotting flaws in people and systems. And they never fully bought into the system they work for, always keeping one foot out of line, and they bottle up their guilt, emotion, and panic beneath a calm surface. But as mentioned, they're very physically affectionate. I imagine that literally almost every scene they're in, they have their hand on somebody's shoulder, or wrapped around it, or Everyone in this group is so down bad. Also, can y'all see the K-pop Demon Hunters inspiration in this story? Can y'all tell I'm a Polytrick stan? Do not come for me, Ruginu fans. Y'all are my second favorite. But back to what we're doing. SKYLAR's ability changed the most because the original was very bad and very confusing. So the new ability is called Black Script. It still has to do with ink. They essentially can control sentient ink that can corrupt, suppress, and destabilize magic, movement, and anything physical or metaphysical. And this can warp the environment or the people who get caught up in the ink. And even SKYLAR themselves. It can erase senses of magical effects, distort space, and trap enemies using constructs, fields, and glitches. The weapon is the same though, a spray paint gun called Eclipse that can have different kinds of inks that do different effects. They can also use the spray paint canisters themselves as like some kind of like effect magical smoke bomb, and the ink can actually be hardened and shot at a harder, I think it's like pressure, to be used as like bullets. SKYLAR's Archai is Razzle, a mischievous, lazy, airheaded Archai with too much confidence and too little timing. They're constantly just vibing while SKYLAR tries to hold everything together. He likes to play pranks, naps during missions, and offers advice only when it's the least helpful. Despite this, Razzle is highly attuned to SKYLAR's stress levels and often intervenes in subtle ways when things get bad. But he does tend to treat danger pretty casually. It makes everything a game and refuses to take sides unless it's fun. This is why SKYLAR needs to fight for their life to get their fighting style right. Their fighting style is calculated and controlled in focus, and they use ink to restrict movement, force bad decisions, and manipulate the battlefield. They don't overwhelm their enemies, they just kind of make them go after themselves. While more efficient in solo work, they have tried to fix their system and their like fighting style to try to match with RIOS and NOEMI in a battle. Some fun facts is that they secretly publish underground designs and expose cracks in the visionary system, keeps old spray caps as trophies from missions, legal and kind of illegal. They have a super secret playlist for both RIOS and NOEMI that they don't know about, and they are very gatekeepy. They will only share their playlists with those two, they will never share them with anyone else, and always has music playing while they're painting. And they're known in Lustrous' street art scene under a different alias. And if they ever say trust me, it means they either have a plan or they have no plan, and you just need to go with it. And that's SKYLAR. I hope you guys like them. I hope you guys like the changes. I know this is kind of like hit or miss, because frankly I like both of SKYLAR's designs, but I particularly like this one. And with that, that is all of the artwork and characters done. So, what do I think of the tablet? Personally, I really like it. It's been years since I last used a non-screen tablet, so getting used to the disconnect between hand and screen definitely took a lot of time. That said, the learning curve was surprisingly fast. After about an hour or two of testing, I started to click in my brain. Once I got the hang of it, it felt smooth, responsive, and easy to control, especially for line work and clean strokes. The pen felt great. It was very lightweight and stable, not slippery at all. The pressure sensitivity responded very well, especially for someone like me who desperately loves varying line weight. The compact size made it easy to move around without feeling cramped, and it was a very beginner-friendly layout. I didn't really need any deep dive into the menus to get started. The only issue I actively confronted was that the hotkeys would glitch a few times and just randomly become unresponsive for a few seconds before working again. It's not a deal breaker, but something to be aware of if you rely heavy on shortcut keys while drawing. Final thoughts: if you're new to digital art or can't spend much on a screen tablet, this is a great option. It's super accessible, it works right out of the box, and performs reliably for everyday use. I recommend it for beginners, hobbyists, or anyone looking for a solid travel tablet or backup device. For anyone interested, there will be a link in my description for the tablet to get it for 15% off using the code, which is valid until the 6th. However, if you miss it, Parblo is actually having a Prime Day event for 20% off for the 8th to the 11th. With that said, we've reached the end of our video. I hope this change didn't disappoint too many people. I really like where I took this story, and I can't wait to make more videos about it in this world. Let me know who out of the trio is your favorite in the comments. Please give me some name suggestions for this trio. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!